So we've discussed the alterations to family structure which underpin the institutional development we're talking about, but I thought now might be the moment to point out that what we're discussing is intersectionality and to have a little chat about what I mean by that. So when we were talking about the family, we were talking about the power relations that used to be hidden within the family unit and now a matter of legal and political responsibility. We have laws, we have systems, they're connected to democratic accountability at all levels. So this is new, this is the situation we have now. Intersectionality is a systems analysis which had to develop in these systems that I'm going to go through, and it's about how these systems join together, it's about how power dynamics shape them, how reducing people within these systems to objects within different institutional identities compounds the shit that these people get, and how failing to reflect on power, and particularly your own identity, means that when you are exercising power, you will reproduce power relations. So intersectionality is primarily about systems analysis, and it's primarily about giving practitioners a way to develop that systems analysis while reflecting on the power that they have and their own identity and the way that their identity shapes their reactions. It's not a way to boss women around or to punch people because your penis makes you feel sad. That's quite silly. So if you want to understand the systems that I'm talking about, I'm not a witch, like I'm not imagining them, you can go buy a social work textbook, a law textbook by Alison Brammer, Social Work Law, and that'll give you an overview of the different legal frameworks that we're talking about that provides the baseline. Have a read of Management and Social Work, which is about the reflection on institutional evolution and the way that it impacts your ability to make judgments and work safely. And Anti-Oppressive Theory and Practice by Lena Dominella. And that's kind of the way in which practitioners learn to reflect on their identity and reflect on power relations so they don't reinforce them. And we keep this function down here at the arse end of things, moi, because actually the kind of reflection on power that we're talking about would be too difficult to do at elite level. So what you're actually talking about is people trained to keep an eye and make sure that the rule of law is being met, because if you cross the rule of law, you will generate instability. Unfortunately, what we've just done is that on a really, really big scale. And where intersectionality is going to come into its own is when we're looking at the failure of universal credit, our local authorities, we're looking at the legal responsibilities that we found out that we can't get rid of that we thought we could. That's when intersectionality will come into its own. When all these crises are coming together, it's that will allow us to build a systems analysis. So fortunately, I had kind of been wondering how on earth we are going to get to the point where this is brought up, and fortunately trans rights activists have not only demonstrated intersectionality and the way that violent power relations reproduce if you ignore the reality of existence underneath crappy identity facets. They have demanded that we look at intersectionality. They have demanded a safeguarding conversations that we have to examine these systems, and then they have excluded themselves from that conversation by demonstrating male pattern abusive behaviour. So that's actually all really, really useful. And I thought what it might actually be really useful to know was that rather than looking at, gender studies and mansplaining degrees and these people for an explanation of intersectionality, they don't have one. Intersectionality is about a reflection on power dynamics and institutional development. The place where you need to go is a man called Friedrich Hayek, and you need to read a book called Road to Serfdom. And that book was it was a warning to the man who designed our benefit system, to say if you use the power of central planning and you rely on kind of these fucking narrow theoretical frameworks, eventually the rule of law will evolve around power dynamics and you won't see it and you will cause crisis and you will try to ride roughshod over it, which is precisely what has happened. And what we're seeing with the word TERF is the institutions who are not aware of these systems. And that's actually really, really very, very useful. So right now, I'll tell you what else is actually a really useful demonstration of intersectionality. Intersectionality is about reflection on identity. So I keep really good reflective habits, and I have done for years and years because I have to do that. If you look at the Owen Joneses and the Laurie Pennies and the elite brats around Corbynism, what they're demonstrating is why we need intersectionality and what happens if you start to identify yourself as good. The people you claim to speak for, you will punch down to. And that's what they demonstrate every day on Twitter, is how refusal to reflect on their own identity allows them to keep reproducing power relations. So that's quite useful, really, isn't it?